Okay. So when these economies basically हमने न्यू वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर भी किया है क्लास में, हमें पता है 1945 के बाद एक बेसिकली एक नया टाइम आया था वेयर it wasn't as simple as colonies, colonizers. There were United States had a different role in the world dynamics, and so you all understand that. उसके बाद आपको ये भी नज़र आया कि Mumalik were actually, countries had to decide, okay, what do we do, how do we make money, how do we survive, how do we run our household. I'm going to use the analogy of a newly married couple here, ठीक है, or a newly married family that has decided that okay fine, we are going to separate from our ancestral home, या हम अपने पेरेंट्स के घर से मूव आउट कर रहे हैं, या you know any number of those activities that could lead to you deciding what are we going to do now, what are we going to make. ठीक है, एक second, let me have my chai. Those of you who come to class regularly, okay, so in the process of what are we going to do now, there are two options that you can adopt. One is something that is referred to as ISI, and the other is called EOI. ISI is import substitution industrialization, and EOI is export oriented industrialization. Both of these topics, all of these topics are given very, very decently in Todero. I know that I have emphasized in the past that I do not care much for Todero as a textbook, but for you it is absolutely fine and probably quite perfect in terms of the content that it will be able to deliver to you. So please have a look at Todero and read what you can from there. ठीक है? So there are two things that you have to decide. मैं ISI follow करूँगी या मैं EOI follow करूँगी. Now, there are a few questions that were, this is from my postgraduate studies actually. There are a few questions that were posed to us पहली क्लास में. हमारे लेक्चरार ने हमें आके बोल दिया था, प्रोफेसर ने, कि are they substitutes to one another, are they mutually exclusive strategies, is it that you have to follow one or the other, is it that you have to is it as simple as कि अच्छा चलो दोनों साइमल्टेनियसली लेके चलते हैं, ISI भी करते रहते हैं, EOI भी करते रहते हैं. Will one be a prelude for the other? Is it that you have to do one effectively first to be able to translate into another? Can you do is it that you could change the sequence up, EOI पहले कर लें, ISI पहले कर लें? आई थिंक इसकी रीडिंग मैंने क्योंकि नहीं करवाई हुई, तो मैं ये गाइड करूँगी कि इस पॉइंट पे मेरा लेक्चर सुनना बंद कर दो, go do the reading and then come back to it, ठीक है? But basically what we're talking about is ISI and EOI. ISI is import substitution industrialization, and EOI is export oriented industrialization. Now very simply put, ISI would mean that you start to produce and manufacture those items that you were initially importing. So as the words imply, import substitution industrialization, okay? The other strategy is export oriented industrialization. Export oriented industrialization, जो चीज़ आप बनाते हो बेहतरीन, जो आपके exports बन जाते हैं. Exports क्या चीज़ होती हैं आपके? आपका comparative advantage good. Our comparative advantage good, clearly we've done this in class. I think I've done it with all of you. Comparative advantage can arise from labor productivity. Comparative advantage can arise from factor endowment. Comparative advantage can arise from the sort of economies of scale that have been exploited. But clearly comparative advantage is something that is yours, and based on that you can decide, okay, ये हमारे exports हैं, but उसमें कोई advantage होता है तो वो आपके लिए advantage बनता है. It's not something which is, you know, oh, randomly I'm going to decide this will be my comparative advantage. So you know, reasons for trade, comparative advantage. What are sources of comparative advantage? Any macroeconomics textbook would be able to give them to you, but we basically very briefly talked about it right now. Class में भी हमने इसके ऊपर की हुई है बात. ISI therefore fights with your comparative advantage, because clearly when you follow import substitution industrialization, you have decided that I am going to make something which I was initially importing. Now the things that you were initially importing, clearly you were importing them because you couldn't make them. One, you couldn't make them. Two, you weren't very good at making them in terms of your productivity. तो प्रोडक्टिविटी अगेन वही बात आ गई कि प्रोडक्टिविटी के क्या क्या सोर्सेज होते हैं कि जी लेबर की प्रोडक्टिविटी आपके पास वो है ही नहीं, रिसोर्स ही नहीं है जो कि वो चीज़ बनाती है. सो यू नो इफ़ पीपल आर इनिशियली इम्पोर्टिंग लैंड इंटेंसिव आइटम्स लाइक क्रॉप्स एंड यू नो that's Isa playing with Isa, stop it. Land intensive items. So if you had a land shortage to begin with, or if you didn't have arid lands, if you did not have productive lands जिसके ऊपर क्या आपका ये crops grow हो सकते हैं, तो आपके साथ what will you be left with? You will have to feed your population. Therefore, you will make what you make, and you will trade it with something that whatever it is that you need to import to feed the population. Therefore, when you follow ISI as a nation, as a country, clearly you are going against your comparative advantage. ठीक है? Against your comparative advantage का मतलब है that you will be making the good that you were previously importing. I am repeating myself. You were previously importing the good because you could not make it yourself, at least not as effectively. And यहाँ effectively का मतलब ये नहीं है कि अच्छी तरह बना रही हैं या बुरी तरह बना रही हैं. यहाँ मतलब है unit labor requirement. ठीक है? Let's be very specific. It's a very technical thing. Let's not get emotional about it. मुझे ये बनाना नहीं आता. आपके पास वो उसकी वो हुनर ही नहीं है. आपने उसको देखो, कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी होती हैं जो कि इंट्रिंसिकली मुझे अच्छी करनी आती हैं, कुछ चीज़ें मुझे सीख सीख के लाइक आई मीन इफ़ यू थिंक अबाउट वेरी सिंपली पुट, आई एम जस्ट बेटर एट डूइंग लॉन्ड्री than somebody that I would have to teach right now from within my household to do laundry. So what do? I'm doing all the comparative advantage items in the house, and I think that makes sense. On the other hand, right now मेरा जितना भी दिल कर रहा है कि मैं जाके गाड़ी में जाके सामान लेके आऊँ और ये करूँ और वो करूँ, somehow comparative advantage wise, I think my husband can cope with that better. So you just give him a list, you just kind of tell him. But I'm thinking today I'll go do grocery myself, because clearly I need to be inspired to kind of think about meals now, because the kids are getting sick of whatever we're feeding them. So anyway, but how lucky are we, alhamdulillah, that markets are still functioning. I think Pakistan needs to be appreciated. And I know there's a lot of anti-government sentiment. I don't know where this is coming. This is so ridiculous. This is not the time for this. इस वक्त तो आपको सारी चीज़ें साइड पे कर देनी चाहिए, और basically the agenda should be, God, this is getting so distracting. The agenda should be कि आप just focus on the task at hand. Alright, ISI समझ आया. I'm going to pause the video here and go on to EOI in the next video.